Is the Euphrates River entering a new era in its history? This crucial waterway has been plagued by a disturbing pattern of drying up for years, leaving millions of people in the region without water. However, something unique has lately occurred. The Euphrates River has stopped drying up. While this may appear to be good news at first, it has also resulted in some genuinely terrible events. So what exactly is going on? Join us as we find out. Water stress. 7 of the 10 countries that have the most trouble getting enough water are in the Middle East and North Africa. Some lakes are almost gone, as shown in the time-lapse movies below. The United Nations has set March 22nd as World Water Day. The goal is to see how far the world has come in giving everyone clean, easy-to-get, and cheap water. UN Water says that 2.3 billion people, or 1/4 of the world's population, live in countries that have trouble getting enough water. Water stress is the amount of liquid that is used compared to the amount that can be replenished. When a country takes out more water than it has, either its groundwater is being used up faster than it can be refilled, or a lot of water is being made from salt water. The average water stress level in the Middle East and North Africa is 820%, which means that the amount of water taken out each year is 8 times higher than the amount of water that can be replenished. The climate in the Middle East is mostly dry and desert, with little rain and high temperatures. Several countries in the area, especially in the Gulf, use desalination, a process that takes the salt out of salt water to give their people enough water. From 1987 to 2017, the amount of water stress in the Middle East and North Africa more than doubled, going from 8.41% to 16.42%. The water of the Nile River, which starts outside of the country, is very important to the country of more than 100 million people. A study from UNICEF in 2021 says that Egypt loses about 7 billion cubic meters of water every year, and the country could run out of water by 2025. Several lakes in the Middle East have shrunk because of things like rising temperatures, more people needing water, and the building of dams. Lake Urmia in Iran and Lake Sawa in Iraq are 2 well-known lakes that are drying up. Lake Urmia used to be the biggest lake in the Middle East and the 6th biggest saltwater lake on Earth. It is in the northwest of Iran and has almost completely dried up, turning into a salt plain. After several years of drought, Lake Sawa has now fully dried up. Rising temperatures and a big drop in the water levels of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers have led to severe droughts in the 43 million person country. If we talk about rivers in the Middle East, the Euphrates was one of the ones that have dried up the most in the last few years, but now the scenario seems to be changed. Euphrates drought. Why has the Euphrates River been drying up for many years? Some of the many reasons for this are the many dams, droughts, water laws, and the waste of water. Many Iraqi families who depend on the river are desperate for water. Low rain is the main reason why the Euphrates River is drying up. Iraq is going through the worst drought it has ever seen. Iraq and the area around it also have to deal with climate change and higher temperatures, which make droughts worse. This has been an issue for a long time. When the river dries up, it affects more than 7 million people. Because it hasn't rained much, it's been hot and the river has dried up. Crops are failing. This has caused more than 800 people to leave the villages near the Euphrates River. Euphrates water level rise. Iraq's Ministry of Water Resources says that the water levels of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which start in Turkey and flow through Iraq, have dropped by 30% in the past few years. Iraq has long said that Turkey uses a network of big dams built between the 1970s and now to hold back water. Since then, the flows of both rivers have dropped by about 40%, cutting off a large amount of Iraq's fresh water. Climate change has also been blamed for the drops. The Elisu Dam, which is one of the biggest on the Tigris, can hold more than 10 billion cubic meters of water. The river's annual flow is about 27 billion cubic meters, but this can change a lot during droughts. On the Euphrates, Turkey's Ataturk Dam has a capacity of 27 billion cubic meters, which is close to the yearly flow of the river. Turkey lets water out of both dams to power hydroelectric power plants. It says the dams are important for keeping Iraq's water supply, which comes mostly from the 2 great rivers, safe and under control. But people who don't like the dams point out that both rivers' water flows have dropped sharply over the years. Turkey also says that Iraq's old water infrastructure and wasteful use of flood irrigation for farming wastes water. The Iraqi government agrees with this, but says that Iraq is still rebuilding from decades of war. Iraq has also said that Iran is building dams on the rivers that feed into the Tigris. These include important rivers like the Diyala, which is blocked by the Daryan Dam in Iran, and the lower Zab, which is blocked by the Sardas Dam in Iran. Images shared on social media from Naziriyah in southern Iraq showed parts of the riverbed of the Tigris in Dikar province and Maysan province, which is close to Iran. The situation in some southern areas was blamed on the low amount of water coming into Iraq from neighboring Turkey. In a statement, it said, "This has led to a sharp drop in the country's water reserves." Khaled Shamal, a spokeswoman for Iraq's water ministry, that the Tigris and Euphrates rivers were only giving Iraq 30% of the water they were supposed to. AFP reported that the authorities will raise the water levels by letting water out of Iraqi lakes in the northern parts of Mosul, Dukhan, and Darban-Dukhan. Bible prophecy. In the Bible, it says that when the Euphrates River runs dry, big things are on the way, maybe even the second coming of Jesus Christ and the rapture. In Revelation 16:12 it says, "The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water dried up to make a way for the kings from the east." Along with the Tigris, the Euphrates flows through modern-day Syria and Iraq before emptying into the Persian Gulf. Mesopotamia is known as the birthplace of some of the world's earliest societies. For thousands of years, the twin rivers have made it possible for farming towns and big cities to grow there. But it has become clearer over the past few decades that the Tigris-Euphrates River system is drying up. A government study from 2021 said that climate change-related droughts and falling water levels could cause the rivers to dry up by 2040. NASA's Twin Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment satellites took pictures of this area in 2013. They found that the Tigris and Euphrates River basins had lost 144 cubic kilometers of fresh water since 2003. GRACE data show an alarming rate of decrease in total water storage in the Tigris and Euphrates River basins, which currently have the second fastest rate of groundwater storage loss on Earth after India, said Jay Famiglietti, the study's lead researcher and a professor of hydrology at UC Irvine. The rate was very high after the drought of 2007. At the same time, the demand for fresh water keeps going up, and the region doesn't work together to manage water because different people have different ideas about how international laws should be interpreted, said Famiglietti. There are already signs of stress, but a complete breakdown of the river system would be terrible for the area. A lot of people in Turkey, Syria, and Iraq get their water from the Tigris-Euphrates. As the rivers start to struggle, foreign fights over access to water are already heating up. These disagreements have also made it hard for governments to find a good answer to the problem. Even though these countries don't have enough water, a public health problem could be on the way. A recent study in the British Medical Journal looked at how people in Iraq are having trouble getting clean water, which is causing a number of health problems. Even though the Bible's declarations about the Euphrates should be taken with a grain of salt, it might not have been too far off when it said that big things would happen. Disappearance of Mesopotamian marshes. 3 years ago, life was good in Iraq's Dikar area, which is in the south. In Punts, fishermen moved through large areas of still water between vast reed beds where cows were bathing among green plants. But today, these marshes, which were once a big part of the huge Mesopotamian marshes, have shrunk into narrow channels of polluted water surrounded by cracked and salty earth. Hundreds of dried-out fish and dead bodies of water buffalo killed by salty water line the sides of a stream. Tens of thousands of hectares of fields and orchards have dried up because of the drought, and farmers are leaving their land and leaving the towns empty. The Mesopotamian marshes, which used to cover between 15,000 and 20,000 square kilometers in the floodplains of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site by the United Nations in 2016. The marshes were part of one of the world's biggest inland delta systems. They were a surprising oasis in an area that was very hot and dry, and they were home to 22 species that were going extinct and 66 bird species that were in danger of going extinct. But now, this ecosystem, which is made up of alluvial salt marshes, swamps, and freshwater lakes, is falling apart because of a mix of weather, water, and political forces. Rivers are getting smaller quickly, and land that used to grow a lot of barley, wheat, pomegranates, and dates is being blown away. Wildlife is being hurt by the environmental disaster, and tens of thousands of marsh Arabs who have lived in this area for 5,000 years are leaving to find work elsewhere. Experts say that if drastic steps aren't taken to make sure the area gets enough water and better manages what's left, the marshlands in southern Iraq will disappear. This would have huge effects on the whole country, as farmers and herders would leave their land for already crowded cities, and the loss of production would cause food prices to rise. The Mesopotamian marshlands are often called the cradle of civilization, because historians think that this is where people started to move from a life of hunting and gathering to one of farming and living in villages about 12,000 years ago. The area, which is made up of 4 different lakes, has always been home to a wide variety of fish and birds, as well as providing a winter home for migrating birds and a good shrimp and finfish fishery. But at the beginning of the 1990s, Saddam Hussein started destroying the marshes in a planned way. He bombed and drained them to get rid of the marsh Arabs and punish them for joining protests against his government. In the end, the Iraqi president's effort cut the amount of water in the marshes by 90%. After the Iraq War, the new government and marsh Arabs started tearing down embankments and drainage systems. By 2006, a UN project to rehydrate the marsh had brought back 58% of its natural water and plants. Thank you for watching. Whatever the outcome, one thing is certain: the Euphrates River story is far from over. So remain tuned and keep an eye on what occurs next. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on the world's most intriguing mysteries. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in our next video.